Welcome to episode 62.
Beltane.
So, creativity, fertility,
pleasure, that which burns inside of us like fire.
Join us as we explore the pleasures of Beltane.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in every body and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
races,
and backgrounds.
With a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true, our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 62. Beltane. Yay, yay, yay. Before we get started, let's do a little bit of a check-in.
That sounds super good. Do you mind if I share first?
I would love for you to share first.
So I wanted to share first about something exciting that's coming up for me this weekend.
Right.
I am going to go see one of my favorite musical artists live.
Oh, I didn't think that's not where I thought you were going, but go on.
I'm going to go see, it's a group called Seven Lions, which is actually just one guy.
Is he a DJ?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
He does like EDM music.
Okay, gotcha.
And, I'm just really, really excited because he has a couple of my favorite songs, and we were planning on going to see him in a because he normally headlines like very large festivals, and he came into town, so we were really lucky that he came into town. So we bought tickets, and now it's this weekend. But here's what I'm most excited about. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about going to see him. But what I really love is who I get to be when I go to these shows. I have this like white, reflective, partially mesh bodysuit unitard thing that because we have different matching outfits, and so this is we call this one our white matching outfit. So it's like white and silver, and it's reflective, and it's like low back, and it's just like so cute. And then I wear a lot of glitter and adhesive rhinestones.
Yes, we were just talking about that. Yes,
yes. And so adhesive rhinestones and glitter and sparkles and like things that like light up, and I just feel most truly myself when I'm in clothing like that.
Well, we were talking about that and about the idea that what we need to do is find for you a lifestyle in which you can do that whenever you want. So we need to find a school district that thinks that is super cool for their students to see and to be able to experience.
Yes, rave wear in the classroom.
Rave wear in the classroom. Or convince your current school district to maybe open up a little bit to maybe alternative way. Well, your alternative teaching, right? So alternative ways of learning and alternative means of delivering educational information. Right?
I love that.
And wisdom.
Yes.
Right?
I love
that. So think of some, I'm just thinking of what the posters would look like in your classroom now if you were allowed to just come in like that and be sparkly.
Yes. I like to be sparkly.
Yeah, you are sparkly.
Nice.
You are sparkly. Sometimes you get to dress.
Yes.
To reflect who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I either like to be wearing mostly all black or all sparkles. And then I do like to wear black sparkles.
Ooh, which just to kind of give it a certain, ramp it up.
Yeah, give it a little zhuzh.
Yay!
So that's what I'm really excited about. Would you like to check in about something for you?
Certainly. So I'm going out to California next week, and I am super excited about it because I have a whole bunch of things planned. But for me, one of the best parts of the trip, besides the stuff that's going to happen when I get to the destination, is the drive. And I love to drive. And I love driving that's not finicky driving where you have to pay a lot of attention and, okay, now you got to turn here and I like when you get on a highway and you just drive on that highway for a day. And then you pull off, you go to, get a motel and so I'm going to be doing that. And I find it therapeutic. Sometimes I listen to audiobooks, sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I listen to silence. And in my inner voice, we were talking about that.
Yes.
I have a conversation with myself. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes things do show. I mean, that's the beauty of it is, you get that white, the white line. And after a while, your brain starts to shut down. Except the part that keeps me driving, just for those of you who care. But you can kind of trance out. You can kind of just get everything just quiets down. It's just you, the road, the sky, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going out next weekend, and I'll be coming back the beginning of May. And like I said, there's wonderful things happening in between. But I'm really relishing the opportunity to have this drive. When I get back, it'll be exams and finals and presentations and grading. So I'll get a little respite in between.
I love that both of our check-ins are about things that excite us.
Yes, indeed. Yay.
I'm really excited about our episode today, talking about Beltane. The idea popped up for us because we'd done a couple of Samhain episodes, but we never actually dived into.
I know, and that's one of the points I'm going to make is like why do we and the mundane world make a big deal about Halloween as opposed to Beltane? But yeah,
well, and I was introduced when I was first starting to practice witchcraft with other people. This is like a long time ago, back in the early zeros. I was introduced to the concept of BNS pagans, similar to C&E Christians.
Yes.
So C&E Christians are Christians that only go to church on Christmas and Easter.
Right.
And BNS pagans, I was educated, are witches or pagans that only really practice for Beltane and Samhain. So that was my first exposure to Beltane's a big deal. And then as I got more into the communities, I began to learn more about it and see why. But, I mean, we're doing it now.
Yeah, and it is a big deal. It's funny, one of the groups that we belong to, I think the times when we get the most women joining us, I mean, like literally joining us as an organization, not just coming to a ritual, has been Beltane. I mean, some of the people that we have that have come, in various times, but are still part of our group today, came on Beltane. And I just find that amazing how it's like this huge intake period. I don't know if it's spring, new beginnings, and okay, Beltane, let's do that. But we have a number, I find it a very fruitful and productive and fertile period.
Which is appropriate for Beltane.
But let me just can I give a couple of fun facts?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So I don't think I knew this until I was just doing a little research for our outline, but it has been. We don't know how old the practice is. It's associated with Celtic rites, England, Ireland, Scotland, but it's obviously there are different versions of it in the Scandinavia, in German lands, etc. But in the Celtic lands, we know for a fact that it's at least 1,000 years old because there was a journal published by someone who I think he died in 683 or 908. He died in 908, and he wrote about the practice of them celebrating Beltane. So we know for a fact that in 908 and before that this was practiced, and we're assuming that it's been longer. Yeah. So anyway, but one of the things that he mentions is one of the practices that is the one that I most knew it by, which is the farmers would, as they're taking their cattle from probably being protected in barns or close to the homestead, and they're taking them out to the summer pastures, they drive them between two bonfires, and it's supposed to purify them as they go out and purify them from disease and from bad luck, etc. So, I mean, there's a couple of elements to that, and drive them out to the summer pastures. And until the 1860s or 70s, farmers were still doing that in various places in the UK.
And I've seen that tradition manifest in some other ways of just like driving the cattle. You're bisecting those two fires. I've seen the tradition of jumping over a fire, so you're still bisecting that fire. When you don't have two fires, you got to do the one.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about because jumping bonfires is a major aspect of that. And so, a couple more fun facts. It's the actual name of the festival has to do with flame, and it's called Bright Fire or Bright Flame. And I don't know why I'm staring up in this. Oh, Bright Fire. There we go. I have it written down, but I'm staring up at my ceiling for some reason, trying to remember. And then one of the important parts of the festival is lighting the bonfire. So that night, the night before, everyone lets their fires go out. And except for, I guess, one. I'm not sure exactly how. One, like the priest or whatever. And then they light the Beltane fire. And then everyone gets a thing from that fire and takes it home and fires up their thing.
I have a couple of things that I want to point out about that. One, what a meaningful tradition so if I put myself back in the mindset, not of Leilani that has 7 lighters around my house and I can create a fire any moment I want, but what an act of trust and surrender to put that fire out. The fire is what actually kept these people alive, But then also, what a beautiful tradition of there's a community fire and then we all take from that fire and it doesn't lessen that fire. It's just a really beautiful image.
It is. It's a very beautiful. Yes. I never thought of that. Right. That idea that there's more of it. It's abundant. So that's, as opposed to the dark time of the year when people are wondering, are we going to make it? This is where flowers are blooming and the calves have been born, or the lambs. I know the lambs have been born because that's Imbo, right? I'm not sure when cattle drop their calves, but whatever. Anyway, but it's extremely fruitful time, and people recognize that by doing this ritual. And it's again one of those things where people don't recognize, but only because I sing at a church, and we just went through Holy Week to Easter, at the Great Vigil on Saturday night, they do that. Where someone lights a candle, and then everyone in the church the next person lights a candle, and then I'm up in the choir loft, so I can look down and see how the flames start to spread out from the center aisle, and everyone's lighting the candle. But we do see some of the remnants of these traditions in a number of different guises. Yeah,
I love that. Fire to me is such a beautiful element. I love that it's really at the center of a lot of Beltane celebrations, and it's just to me it can be a lot of things, but it's just such an abundant element, because if everyone comes and takes some water, the level of the water goes down. If everyone comes and takes some earth, the level of that goes down. But when people light a candle or light a fire from a fire, that doesn't impact the size of the fire. It just creates more.
Yeah, you can take fags all over the place, and it's still, that fire is still there. That's amazing. I never thought about that. Yeah. Thank you for that imagery.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Abundance.
Yes, abundance. So just a couple more. And then one of the things that I don't think I thought about too much because that's not necessarily part of my tradition, but this is the counter. I don't know if you wanted to talk about the Wheel of the Year.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, would you? Why don't you get?
Okay,
and then I can talk about my part.
So for me, I don't feel a lot of attraction to a certain pantheon or region for my marking my celebrations around the year. I feel really drawn to the Wheel of the Year, and just a little Wheel of the Year. We should do a Wheel of the Year episode.
We should do it. Yes, we should. Okay.
But just if everyone thinks that instead of a calendar being linear, the way time in Western culture, we have a linear calendar. Instead, it's a circle, and the parts of the year are subdivided on that circle into equal parts. So, for example, winter and summer solstice are on opposite sides of the wheel, and then you've got your equinoxes bisecting that at a 90-degree angle. So, and then on that, and if you bisect that, if you're cutting a pizza and you cut the pizza into more slices, then you've got Beltane, which is at the counterpoint to Samhain. So for me, the way that I like to think about it is that the Beltane marks this transition period between spring equinox and summer solstice.
Exactly.
So for me, I'm less attracted to Beltane, the word Beltane and the practices attributed to Beltane. I'm more interested in it as this liminal period between these 2 points. And I mean, for me, the whole Wheel of the Year is liminal. Well, most of the Wheel of the Year is liminal. It's a transition. But for me, that's where I look at it. And I think about it more as moving from a time of fertility into a time of creation.
Oh, yes.
Which I may be getting into the nitty gritty, but that is
That's what we're here for.
That is what Beltane is, I think. You know, so I'm less attracted to taking that, to saying like, I practice Beltane and going back to the Beltane roots, but more at like what I think the universal archetypal practices are that we see pop up all over the world.
Right. So I love how you put that, because first of all, I love the idea of the wheel because it's cyclic again, which is kind of feminine, but anyway, that whole idea of, it comes around. We get senses of that a little bit, but it's so funny as you think about how the mundane world thinks about the calendar. It's, Christmas is done. Mm-hmm. So we're having our sales. We're going to forget about Christmas until next year, or, oh my gosh, you only have 24 shopping days till Christmas, or, 26, whatever. And then there's this nervous, and then everyone's shopping. There's Christmas Day, and then Christmas is over. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you have seasons, it's a build up maybe to a specific day, but that season continues until you start, and they overlap, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have, okay, this is the Beltane season. Okay, that was the spring equinox season. No, they kind of overlap because really a lot of cultures consider Beltane the end of spring and the beginning of summer, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but they overlap. They kind of, like you say, liminal. They kind of feed into each other, that you can kind of have part of one and still have the part of the other. And that's, I think, a reflection of the fact that it's on this wheel.
Yes. I think you're pointing out for me, and we talked about this on another episode about like the natural cycle of things, the wheel of the year, the cycles of the moon versus this, what I would say is like pretty contrived linear Western view of
and
time.
Yes. And what's the word I'm looking for? It's not product driven, but, something driven. It's driven towards a point, and then you drive to the next point, and then you drive to the next point. Mm-hmm. It's like 24 days till Christmas, and as opposed to just being in this kind of ebb and flow of the season. And sometimes it feels more like, okay, this is kind of equinoctial. Okay, but now we're kind of Beltane-y, fire. Yeah. So and I like that because that relieves pressure from me to have to be somewhere at a certain point, or, do or die, right? Mm-hmm.
I even see this energy, this is not even on our outline, but I even see that energy in you as you are driving out on your trip.
Yes.
I haven't heard you say, and I don't even know when it actually is.
I don't even.
Because all I hear you talking about, I have this drive, and then I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to do these things, and these things are going to, like, everything it just feels very cyclical to me. Not like, on this day, at this time, I'm going here, and then I'm.
Yeah. And it's so funny because people ask me, okay, on the first night, where are you stopping? I don't know. So it's like, I kind of want to be past this place maybe, but we'll see.
Where does the crow rest? The crow rests where the crow decides to rest.
I love that. Where does the crow rest?
You fly and then you rest.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. So having talked about the Wheel of the Year, one of the points that I find so fascinating is that across the wheel from Beltane to Samhain, and I just find it so with both cases, we're moving from dark to light at Beltane, and we're moving from light to dark in Samhain, and that's the point when the veil between the worlds is considered to be extremely thin. Mm-hmm. And so we have there's all these traditions in both places at both times, but the ones that we see at Halloween have survived. And I just find it so funny that all of these traditions around Halloween they survived in various guises, right? We don't. We may not be doing them with the original intent, but, trick-or-treating, Halloween, dressing up.
Carving gourds.
All of that stuff. We still see that, but we don't see that much. We don't see that much in terms of Beltane. We see it kind of subsumed into Easter, right? And there may be some, I don't know if there are any midsummer traditions, but yeah. So I just find that really funny. But the big difference between Beltane and Samhain, in terms of the veil being thin, is that it seems like people are more concerned about spirits and the ghosts and spirits in the fall. In the spring, the ones who do the crossing over are the fairies and those types of spirits. And so a lot of the practices around that is just kind of, you're trying to propitiate the fairies, because you can't control them, but what you can do is try to make them think favorably about you.
Yes.
So do you know what any of those traditions are? I know a couple of them. One is you put out a saucer of milk.
I've done milk, honey, berries.
Yeah, you put out fruits.
I may be part fae because that's what if I could only eat what I wanted, I would eat like sweetened yogurt with berries, please.
I have this picture of like you following a priestess and she's dropping it and you're picking it up behind her.
I would do that, except it would piss off the fae, and I'm not about to do that.
But what you can do is after a couple of days saying, you didn't eat that. Okay, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, I never thought that sounds... Yes, your normal diet, isn't it?
My desired diet would be that of the fae.
Yes. So, yeah, there might be some work around that you can do. So, anyway.
I do love that the counterpoint to Samhain. For me, it's so important to have that balance, to have that harmony between opposing forces, which are actually, I believe, the same force. We have death and creation, light and darkness, coming to an end for Samhain. The beginnings, the creation and the beginnings in Beltane. I just think it's beautiful, and I want to live a life that holds both.
Yes. And again, I think that's a wonderful way in which people who practice this type of spirituality can have such maybe a more healthy, but also a lot more satisfied view of life, because it's not, I know that it's a cycle. Mm-hmm. And even if I were to leave this plane, I'm still there. I'm just, not the people who are in that plane can no longer see me. And so there's less this, oh my God, I'm going to die. This kind of, that's the end. I know it's not the end. Mm-hmm. And so the cycle continues, even if it's taking a different form than the ones we embrace when we're sitting on this earth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a healthy and beautiful way of living a life.
We all will have the opportunity to die. We also all have the opportunity to create and live ecstatic, passionate lives. So why not take the opportunity to embrace all that there is instead of focusing on one or the other?
Exactly. Wear the glitter.
Right? I will wear the black clothes, Samhain, but I'm also going to wear the sparkles.
You embrace it. You do that beautifully. Like we said, we got to get that school district up and going.
That's right. I do feel like Beltane holds, for me, this really ecstatic energy. Mm-hmm. The energy of ecstasy, the energy of creation, and I think Beltane gets a lot of that focus on sex, mm-hmm. which is a wonderful place to get it. I think mm-hmm. sex with someone else, sex by myself, but I also can find it in these other places that I bring Beltane energy back to my check-in.
Yes,
like going to these EDM shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Well, the idea of creating, it takes so many different forms for so many different people, and I highly encourage everyone to find a form that works for them or more, mm-hmm. and do it as much as possible. Because to me, I'm embodying God. And so when I'm, I'm probably not thinking a whole lot about God when I'm having sex, but I should more. And maybe soon. But this idea of, participating in these living, breathing activities that allow me to bless the world with, maybe it could be an artwork, or maybe it could be a piece of music, or a dance, or maybe it won't be a child for me, but with other people it might be they're blessing the world with a child, or it could be an idea. I could be blessing the world with an idea. I could be blessing the world with a meditation. I could be blessing the world with just sitting and being a part of the world. So there's a creative aspect in so much that we do. And so I mentioned the fact that we don't celebrate it in this world as closely associated with Beltane as we do with Halloween and Samhain. But it has been coming back. So obviously, Wiccans and various types of witchy people have started since the 80s. Have started to have a lot of Beltane celebrations, which now have fed into the the dominant culture, into the mundane world. So one of the biggest Beltane festivals in the world is in Edinburgh. And in fact, here another fun fact, in fact, two people that we interviewed last year or 2 years ago now, the Witches Next Door, I'll put the episode in the show notes. They were in Edinburgh last year during Beltane, and they actually reported on it in their podcast, so you can listen to it. I think it was around December. They're not like they're not super let's get this done, but I think in December they posted a whole passel of podcasts that were based on their trips to Scotland and England, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, and so they report on that there, and it's so much fun. I highly recommend everyone get a chance to listen to that. But that's a big deal, and it's celebrated not just by witchy people, but people in Scotland who want to recapture their connections to their ancestors and to old practices. So I think it sounds like it's very respectful. People are not just throwing up and getting drunk and peeing all over the place. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sound like a certain type of good time.
I was going to say there is a party in there too. Don't get me wrong. But so many it's huge, and it's not just witchy people or Wiccans or whatever. There's a lot of people who are trying to embrace that.
My university that I got my undergrad in, which was in the Ozarks, in like a smallish town in the Ozarks, very conservative area. Whenever I was going to college there, they decided they were going to have a May Day celebration.
Oh, yes.
And I remember being like, really?
Because, it's so divorced from,
Do you know what May Day is? And then I was a part of this alternative religions club, which, by the way, we would get a lot of Catholics showing up because they were like, that's alternative, right? Because in the Ozarks,
I'm feeling
the Catholics were considered like, woo, out there. And we were like, no, it's not for Catholics. You're welcome to stay, but... But anyways, they came to us. The university came to us and asked for a maypole.
Whoa!
And which is appropriate, of course. But I remember being like, you know what a maypole is, right?
It's a big dick.
It's a giant phallus that we dance around.
That we dance around. We decorate and we wrap
it up
because we practice safe,
right.
safe celebrations here.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. No, and I love, and so and we have May Queen still, and we see that kind of. I think it translated in common U.S. culture to prom queens, to high school celebrations. So we still, because that takes place about that same time.
It does.
And sometimes they actually have like a May Day thing, and maybe who knows, maybe a maypole. Yeah, but it's just a big penis, and sometimes they actually decorate the tip,
right,
which leads people to understand a little bit more what they're doing, but often they don't.
Yeah.
So other parts about, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that idea of fertility. So we talked about ways in which spiritually we can explore those ideas, but there's some pretty mundane ways as well. And I know in a couple of groups that I've belonged to, there, obviously there's sex as an act of fertility, and then some people it's much more formalized, like it's the great rite, and so the idea of the goddess and the god and the whole bit. But just in some traditions, young people would just go out into the woods on May Eve and have sex. Dang, I wish I'd lived then.
I mean, there were a lot of cons back then, but that was definitely a pro. Right.
That was a pro. I could so live with that, and it was considered because they were blessing the fields or blessing or celebrate. I'm not quite sure. That part I'm a little unclear on, but the idea was that they went out there and they had sex.
Like on an energetic level, that idea of putting that sort of passion and ecstasy and joy and co-created energy into things, it makes so much sense to me. Yes. And so, so that's one aspect. And then, we see this, and one of the things that we do see is that women still make crowns of flowers. And I love that idea. And there's something phallic too. I can't remember. I think, aren't you supposed to throw them over the maypole or something? Oh, I don't know.
Okay. I'm not sure about that either. Don't hold me to that one. But
I do think boutonnieres are the phallic version of a flower crown. So.
There we go. Yeah, little cherub.
Little
cherub.
just little bloop, like.
Thank you. I'll never
I'm
look
trying
at
to describe the shape so our listeners, they don't know what bloop means, but like the.
She's holding one hand and pulling it up from the other.
Yeah.
Like something growing.
Yeah.
Something developing.
Yes.
Something erecting.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So again, erections figure prominently in a lot of the iconography, even if it's not a direct penis. It'll be a phallic symbol like a pole or things like that. And then just the way, I think you were talking about honey when you were giving gifts to the fae, to the fairies, and honeys and bees. They're so productive. They just go around from flower to flower, fertilizing the flowers, and then taking those little bits of little crumbs of things from flower and making something that can pretty much nourish a person. I mean, you can live on. I mean, you don't want to live on it a long time, but you can live on honey. And so the symbol of the bee as being this incredibly productive, fertile, transformational entity is a powerful one as well. I want to have a beehive.
I could see you having a beehive.
I want a beehive. It's the thing is there's too many chemicals and chemical stuff around here that it wouldn't be good for them. But still, I'd love that.
I love the concept of Beltane being about fertility. And I do think biological fertility is an important thing, especially a long time ago when, most people would end up dying before they even reached a fertile age. So I don't want to gloss over that. I do think in our modern world, it can be reductive to have that pushed on me.
To have it just be about physical.
About physical fertility and birthing a child. And so I like to make sure that whenever I'm using that when I'm tapping into that sort of thought pattern, that I don't limit myself or others to that. Speaking as a 40-year-old woman who is not having children. So, but I do think that that's an important thing to reference. And I love that you pointed out earlier, it can be about so many different things. It can be about careers, passions, hobbies, things that I'm creating in my life, that I'm building metaphorically, I'm building psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, relationally. All of these things that I think, if I think about the wheel of the year, springtime is coming out and newness, but Beltane is whenever the ecstasy comes in for me, with the practice, and then it bursts forth in a moment of ecstatic joy.
Oh my gosh! Okay. Fortunately, she's not doing any hand signs right now. So. Indeed.
It bursts forth into the world.
Into the world, yes. Okay, but and one of the things that I love too about Beltane, it's about all of that, but it's also about the celebration of that. It's not just let's have sex, but it's celebrating what that means, and on the mundane level, it means if people are having children, etc., the race will continue. Humans will continue. The fields will grow food and we'll eat and we won't die. So there's this mundane level, but just the excitement and joy that you were just mentioning, it's celebration. It's I think if we think of our corollary, if we think of Samhain, that's more about honoring and revering and diving deeply in within, whereas this is about like as you said, it's like spurting forth. It's about overt out there celebrating, and like two faces of the same coin. But this one's definitely overt. This is definitely like, it's how much out in the world can we be? Okay, yeah.
And I think when you put it that way, how much out in the world can we be? I see why there was such repression of this ecstatic expression.
Oh, that's why. Yes, yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier in the episode, I wonder why, like, we don't see the Beltane stuff as much as we see like the Samhain stuff in our current culture. I personally think it's probably deeply connected to our puritanical oppression.
That makes sense. But, okay, so having said that, thank you for just jogging this, because now I'm seeing, remember I talked about all of these Easter rituals that have kind of taken some of these Beltane things. Some of them are spring things too. But, you know, I'm thinking of the hymn, "Up from the grave he arose." So, so we still get that emergence. We still get that.
Oh, yes. May he arise, right?
So Easter is about, you know, the way doctrinally, it's about Christ leaving this and ascending, right? You know, coming out of the grave and yeah. So we get some of that celebratory. We celebrate Christ's emergence and his springing forth. And so, yeah, so there's still some Beltane stuff. It's just been, it's been syncretized with, in this case, Catholicism, and then it spread to the other denominations as they developed.
Yeah, I imagine they came in there like, "No, we can't be doing this. I'm just going to smack on some." We can't be doing y'all can keep your chicks and your ducks and your little lambs, but we're just gonna put Jesus coming out of a rock.
That's right.
On top of this.
And a little cross. I know, when you think, when I was sending Easter memes to my family on text, when you look at those things, you're like, what does this have to do with this religious event, this religious feast or whatever? These little Easter eggs and rabbits, like, Happy Easter.
Jesus came back. Here's your chocolate egg. Like,
I know, it's that's a really tortured kind of connection there.
Yeah. You don't have to scratch deep to get to, which can also be a Beltane practice, scratching a little bit, you know, let's get some feelings going.
Yes, I like that.
Maybe we could both share a little bit about some of our personal experiences with a witchy Beltane type of practice. I know we've made some allusions to it in previous episodes, but I unknowingly created a elemental Beltane series.
Yes, you did. So you didn't. Let's take a moment for me to kind of make sure I'm clear about this. You didn't say one morning, "I think over the next 4 or 5 years, I'm going to do Beltanes, and I'm going to do an element for each one."
I did not.
Wow.
I do think subconsciously, as somebody who identifies more with the seasons and more with the elements, more with the wheel of the year, and yet less with specific cultural celebrations of the holidays, I think I originally was offered to do a Beltane ritual for our circle, and I did it more traditionally around fire. And we had a fire, and we talked about our passion. We sang fire songs, and then we jumped the fire. And then a couple of years later, I was offered the opportunity again to get to priestess, to spearhead the priestessing process of Beltane. And I remember looking at it and thinking, well, what can I do? Like, I've already done that. Like, what's another way of looking at this? And as part of my personality, I do like to be contrary. I do like to look at things from a different perspective.
Oh, right.
So I remember looking at it and thinking, how else can we look at this without just focusing on fire? And my thought was, well, if Beltane is about sensuality, and I also love etymology, sensuality is rooted in our senses, then how do we experience the world sensually? And so then I focused on the earth as our lover. If the earth is our lover and Beltane is about passion and loving, how do we experience the earth as our lover? And I have to say, one of my deepest memories of that ritual is you walking around with a honey pot.
Oh my, I totally forgotten about that.
I
totally forgotten about that.
I had asked different...
Not my real honey pot. Okay, let's...
I mean, I'm not going to say what you weren't energetically doing.
It was a pot of honey, okay, with a little honey...
I don't know what to call that.
The drizzle thing.
The drizzle sticky thing. Which is
and the glass itself, it was crystal that was shaped like a honeycomb, like a beehive. And
I remember the honey was just this beautiful color, and you were holding it and drizzling it. If women consented at the ritual, you would drizzle it on them. And I had asked...
I'd forgotten about that.
I hadn't. I had asked different priestesses to bring things that were sensual to them. with the senses. So there were things like berries and honey. I had a big pot of earth that people could dig their hands into and could smell. But it was all about experiencing the earth with our senses and then using that ecstatic experience to burst forth our desires.
And it was brilliant.
I loved it. But I remember you offered, I didn't ask for a honey pot, but you were like, can I bring a honey pot? And I was like, mind blown. Absolutely, please. But it was just a really beautiful, I think it was a really beautiful experience of the earth in that way. And then after that, during COVID, when we were in the separated times, we did a ritual around baths.
I love this one.
For Beltane.
Yeah.
And I loved that. That was partially born out of necessity because we were all separate. One of the other women priestesses in our group called it separate but together.
Yes.
And everyone had their cameras off, and so it was a private thing, but we were all together, like we all were simultaneously listening to the same music and had to.
Okay, may I jump in because I want to make sure everyone is clear about this. So this was on Zoom, and we were all in our bathrooms, and so we were all actually physically taking a bath during our ritual. So I just want to make sure that was clear. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was born out of necessity because we were separated by COVID, and I was looking at Beltane and how can we use these Beltane energies in a way that we can do while we're apart. And so one of those was the idea of the water uniting us. And like we had these satchels that were made by a certain group and they had been distributed in a safe way to all of the different women. So we had water, we had the same earth element satchel, and then we had candles for fire. So again, it was very elemental, but using that, seriously, like baths.
I was going to say,
baths are passionate for me, man.
Well, see, but this is again your contrariness. It's like, okay, Beltane fire. No, we're going to do a bath, and you're going to feel Beltane through our bath, and it was amazing.
And yes, and because I think baths can be very relaxing, but baths can also be pretty dang hot. They can, not just temperature wise.
Okay. Okay. Yes, they can be. They can be, and it was
So that's kind of from my personal look and how I've priestess Beltane. Do you want to share some of yours?
Sure. So actually, since you mentioned COVID, I just remember. So I've done a lot of communal Beltane rituals, and there's one group that I do some things with, and the ritual is this glorious one that is about Mama Honey. And so, we taste the sweetness of life is one of the things that we say. And so, I really, on a certain level, it's not a traditional, we jump a bellfire because, kind of have to.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So, now I kind of I swing a leg over the, sorry, I shouldn't have said that while you were taking a sip, but. It's not quite as active as I used to be.
It's still activating that area.
It's still activating the area. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
The heat's still going up to where the heat needs. I think the heat comes from.
Exactly. There you go. And those are wonderful. But I just remember, and so we've done that. A lot of things that are around the idea of personal creativity and fertility, and then. But I remember. The year of lockdown, so 2020, we did our group one, and but on actual Beltane, I did an individual one, and it just, I think I built a fire pit that year, and I think I was literally out there, and I was, playing my drum and singing, and the moon, I don't think the moon was full, but the moon was visible, and I just remember not saying, okay, this, I'm connecting with people of the past, because my ancestors were not doing this. But I just remember getting this sense of this movement of the year, the wheel swinging. I mean, like really feeling myself on the wheel, just kind of moving to the summer. It was still kind of cool. I had the heat of the fire in front of me, and my back was cool, not cold, but cool. So you kind of get that feeling. I love that kind of toasty feeling. But I also just remember thinking that my creativity that day was the song and the drumming. And I danced a little bit, and my neighbors who are like uber Christians was saying, "Oh, our children were just dancing with that. They just loved your song. What were you singing? What were the words? We couldn't tell." It's like, this was the best, honey. But I just remember me thinking, this is really getting a sense of this is Beltane. Sometimes when we're doing ritual, I'm too much into the ritual and not really thinking about the season, about the thing that I'm actually celebrating. I'm thinking about whatever the intention is for that ritual, which may or may not be directly, it's connected, but it may not necessarily be the kind of traditional. And I just remember thinking, wow, that this is just amazing, and just kind of sitting out there and watching the fire down. Like I stoked it for a little bit, but then after a while, just watching it die down, and then watching the embers, and then watching, the kind of the ash build up, and you can see a little bit in there. And then I took a stick and pulled it apart a little bit, so you can see it's like these lines. They used to call them salamanders, remember? So So because the like lines of red would just kind of, like a line would just shoot across like a spark, but in the embers, and just watching that and just being totally mesmerized by it. And I jumped over that once we went down to the embers. I could jump. I was down. I was totally down on that. But I just remember that was a particularly poignant Beltane for me. It was a solitary during the first couple of months of lockdown. Yeah, very, very powerful for me.
So beautiful. Do you want to talk about this at all?
Oh yeah. So one of the things that I'm involved with is a camp that we're having our first camp this year. We've been planning this since before COVID, and it's all around celebrating Beltane. And so we'll be out in the redwoods. There'll be a number of us out there, and we're going to be exploring all different types of expressions of Beltane, but primarily working with sex magic, which I think is going to be super, super cool in all of its different guises. We'll have people there who will be, like kinksters, and they bondage discipline. We'll have people who are exhibitionists. We'll have people there who are like, I would really like to work with sex magic in a safe place because I know very little about it. So we have this whole spectrum of people, and I am so excited about this. And we're going to be, there's a whole level of thinking about this in terms of ecosexuality, and how, as we heal ourselves, in terms of our ability to generate, maintain, and grow from the energy of this, that we can also be helping the earth. So it's going to be a pretty powerful experience.
I can't, as an extrovert, I can't even imagine how my magic would intensify being around other people who are intensifying. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. So yeah, hold some energy for us, because as we do this is our first year. Super, super excited, super nervous, but it's gonna be great.
I love that you're on the team for it, and I see you bringing so much of who you are to it, because I see so much of who you are being just like really fitting into this in a really beautiful way.
Well, I thank you. And I think a large part of this for me is that we have such diverse people on this team. So, we have some people who are sex workers. We have some people who have, different ways of envisioning their relationships. And then we have me. and so we all bring experiences and wisdoms from that experience, but we also bring this super commitment to this type of energetic work. And I think that's the thing. It has been such a blast working with these people. Very much interested, as a group, we're very much interested in anti-racism, social justice. We screened. We had interviews with all of the potential campers and teachers. We have like videos and readings for them to do, so that when we come in, we can create as safe a container as possible for everyone to be able to be as to commit as much of themselves as they'd like to this energy. So it's going to be huge.
I love hearing that. That actually makes me feel, I would feel really safe or safer moving into like for me, an edgy space, knowing that people were screened and that everyone is there in like a healthy, supportive, anti-racist way.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I'm so psyched about it. So yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to mention this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is another exciting part of my life right now. Oh, and then so one of the things coming up, I will be taking care of our Beltane ritual this year. It won't be you. I can't be you, but you know, who can be besides you, right? And it's all about celebrating our bodies and celebrating our connections with the earth. So I am, and you know, there's more, but I don't need to go into a whole lot of that. But again, that idea of celebration, I mentioned it earlier. So a lot of the stuff that I have been facilitating in rituals over the past couple of years have been about healing, healing the earth, or healing our connection, or healing, you know, healing our culture and our society. And for this one, nope. I mean, the celebration will be healing, but it's all about celebrating. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
I love that. I love that. Mm-hmm. There's a song that we sing sometimes in ritual, and one of the lines is, all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I just think, what would it be like if I had grown up thinking that?
Yeah. Again, we've talked about this on a number of occasions. I'm so heartened to see young people who are doing this stuff now, as opposed to me, I'm just getting to the point where I can do this work, right? And at my age, you know, in the 60s. And so it's so nice seeing that people are doing it younger, and that just means that our society is just going to be growing and developing and becoming so much more healthy, and so much more supportive of people trying to be themselves, trying to be authentic. So, yay. So
in case you're wanting maybe something to look into something, if you're looking for something to read or listen to, I thought it'd be cool if we mentioned a couple of things real quick. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of the lyrics that you were talking about, all acts of love all acts of
love and pleasure are my rituals.
So the text itself is from The Charge of the Goddess, which was written, I want to say, in the 80s by Doreen Valiente. But what we were just singing is a chant
from Shauna Carroll. If you can YouTube it, it's called Goddess Chant by Shauna Carroll. The song is called Sacred Pleasure. But it just, for me, it really like blew my mind. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first things that I really listened to that held this energy, which I think is at such a counterpoint to the energy of our culture.
So now it's time for our poem. And the poem, this is actually, it's by a poet called Molly Remer, who, or I might be mispronouncing her name, Remer or Remer, R-E-M-E-R. And her name will be in the show notes or in the tags. And she has a blog. And so, I found actually another poem of hers, and I was looking her up to just get more information about her, and then found the poem that we're going to read today. And, you know, brilliant poet, and she writes about her life and her family and rituals, and it's a beautiful blog. I actually signed up for a newsletter just because I was so interested. So I highly recommend her. But this is called Rite of May.
I rose early, seeking Beltane dewdrops with which to anoint my brow. The cupped violet stems and clover were dry, and I found no dewdrops in the chickweed stars.
Instead, I put out oranges for the orioles, ran my fingers through the dandelions, and pressed my nose into the lilacs.
I spotted green flowers on the mulberry trees, found the first wild pink geraniums and tender bells of columbine, and came face to face with the quiet black eyes of solemn deer in the raspberry bushes.
These things, their own kind of anointing, their own small and significant rites of May magic. Beautiful.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much for joining us as we explore some of the meaning of Beltane for us, and we so appreciate your being on us with this journey, listening to us as we kind of figure out what we're thinking, but also providing support to us just by being listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!